Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into some crucial AI news and uncovering what is honestly a massive, hidden blind spot in medical AI. I mean, we constantly hear about AI achieving superhuman performance, right? But what actually happens when those impressive metrics are masking a systemic failure in patient care? We're going to unpack a really fascinating new paper on long-tailed chest X-ray classification that exposes how our standard evaluation metrics can create this total illusion of safety, essentially leaving vulnerable patients behind.
So I want to start by posing kind of a paradoxical question to you. If an AI model accurately ranks a rare disease, meaning, it knows patient A is statistically more likely to be sick than patient B, why is patient A still going home undiagnosed? It's basically like an AI acing its written exam, but totally bombing the real-world practical. How exactly can a model score so incredibly high, yet still fail marginalized patients in an actual clinic? Well, that is the diagnostic mystery we're solving today. Okay, let's just quickly look at our roadmap. We are going to cover 1, the hidden diagnosis gap, 2, long-tail data challenges, 3, the clinical threshold problem, 4, a tail-where solution, 5, massive FNR reductions, and 6, auditing your AI pipelines. Let's get into it. All right, section 1, the hidden diagnosis gap, ranking versus reality. Look, here is the core conflict. Medical AI deployment almost always optimizes for macro-averaged metrics, like mean average precision or MAP. But here's the thing about those ranking metrics. They simply ask, did you score the sick patient higher than the healthy patient? That's it. In the real-world clinic, though, you need a firm yes or no. You need a hard clinical decision boundary where the system explicitly says, yes, flag this X-ray for the doctor, and ranking metrics completely conflate the ordering of scores with those actual hard decision boundaries. And honestly, this leads to a pretty terrifying reality. High macromap models can still produce raw scores that literally never cross the fixed clinical threshold for rare diseases. Let that sink in for a second. The model correctly ranks a rare positive case higher, so it gets a great score on paper, but the numerical output stays so low it never actually triggers an alert for the physician. It's wild. This creates a systemic underdiagnosis of rare conditions, particularly in minority demographic subgroups. Moving on to Section 2, long-tail data challenges. Visualizing the data imbalance. Drawing from the long-tail CXR benchmark study, the disparity we're dealing with here is just staggering. In the head classes, which are the common findings seen every single day, there can be up to 53,000 labeled training images. But down in the tail classes, the really rare critical findings, a model might only have 7 labeled images to learn from. 7. It is the ultimate needle in a haystack problem, and it's the root cause of our entire mystery. Now, if you're following AI news, you probably know this as a long-tail distribution. It's a statistical pattern where a small set of common findings occur all the time, while a much larger set of critical findings occur very rarely. Now, a trained human radiologist, they can easily learn to spot a rare condition from just a handful of examples. But standard machine learning methods naturally get super biased toward the frequent classes, which just completely drives down the raw confidence scores for everything hiding in the tail. Section 3, the clinical threshold problem, a structural failure mode. The researchers framed their entire study around this one really powerful audit question. After a long-tailed multi-label CXR model is converted from scores into decisions, who was missed? And this isn't just some academic thought experiment. It is an absolutely critical pre-deployment fairness check. Because if we aren't asking this before launching an AI into a hospital network, we simply have no idea who is falling through the cracks. So let's break down the exact mechanism of this failure mode step by step. First off, developers and engineers optimize for macro-averaged metrics. They look at those beautiful ranking curves and they approve the model. Great. Second, when deploying, a single fixed decision threshold is applied across all patients. Third, because of that extreme data imbalance we just talked about, rare positive patients, especially those in specific demographic subgroups, produce scores that fall just below this fixed threshold. The end result? Threshold-induced underdiagnosis. And the scariest part is that your ranking curves will literally never show you this is happening. Fairness for rare labels actually depends jointly on the specific finding, the patient subgroup, and the operating threshold. Section 4, a tail-aware solution, the diagnostic ladder. Thankfully, the researchers didn't just point out the problem. They developed a proven methodology to fix it. Step 1 is group tail weighting. This basically means explicitly applying subgroup-aware loss weighting during the model's training phase to balance out those huge data disparities. But training tweaks aren't enough on their own, which leads to step 2, tail-aware thresholding. This is huge. This is where you explicitly separate threshold selection from training, calibrating specific decision boundaries for each demographic or risk group rather than using one blanket threshold for everybody. Finally, step 3 acknowledges reality. Clinical override mechanisms are strictly necessary to handle any residual misses. I want to pause here for a quick aside regarding off-the-shelf fixes, because this is super important. A lot of developers out there use group distributionally robust optimization, usually just called group DRO, as a baseline to improve aggregate fairness. But the researchers proved that group DRO alone absolutely does not eliminate rare subgroup misses. Balancing group losses during training still yields raw scores that fall below clinical thresholds for those tail subgroups. Explicit post-training threshold adjustments are strictly required to protect these patients. No shortcuts. Section 5. Massive FNR reductions. Hard data from Vindar CXR and Mimic CXR. 70 to 80%. Seriously, just take a moment to let that number sink in. By utilizing group tail weighting followed by tail-aware thresholding, the researchers cut the false negative rate, which is the rate at which sick patients are incorrectly told they're completely healthy, by 70 to 80% in demographic worst groups. I mean, that is an immense, literally life-saving improvement. To put that into perspective, let's look at the Vindar CXR dataset. The tail false negative rate dropped from a baseline of 0.665 down to 0.269. The sex worst group FNR dropped from 0.705 to 0.157. And check this out. The age worst group FNR plummeted from a truly dismal 0.822 all the way down to 0.133. And here is the absolute kicker. The overall macro MMAP score actually went up slightly. They proved for sure that you do not have to sacrifice overall ranking performance to achieve critical fairness. Plus, rigorous statistical checks, specifically paired bootstrap contrasts, confirmed these improvements were rock solid, not just a fluke in the data. They also tested this pipeline on the highly imbalanced Mimic CXR long-tail dataset. And again, it successfully reduced the tail FNR from 0.866 to 0.741, lowering the worst group FNR across sex, age, race, and insurance categories. However, and this is a big however, the researchers noted that residual missed positive rates remained pretty high here. This proves a vital point. On highly imbalanced datasets, you cannot just set it and forget it. It demands continuous, aggressive threshold tuning and really strong clinical override protocols. Section 6. Auditing your AI pipelines, the developer toolkit. So, if you're an engineer or data scientist deploying medical AI, this is your toolkit checklist. First, audit at the decision boundary, because as we've seen, ranking metrics absolutely do not guarantee patient safety. Second, employ group tail weighting alongside tail-aware thresholding. Third, remember that methods like group DRO aren't a magic silver bullet for rare labels. Fourth, anticipate residual misses on highly imbalanced datasets. And fifth, make sure you implement reproducible audit pipelines to track the false negative rate for every single finding subgroup matrix, validating any changes with rigorous statistical checks before the model ever touches a real patient workflow. Ultimately, the illusion of safety provided by ranking metrics is officially broken. We now know, without a doubt, that rare label fairness in chest x-rays depends jointly on the finding, the subgroup, and the operating threshold. So I want to leave you with this provocative question to take back to your teams. When you actually convert your AI's scores into hard clinical decisions, who is your AI missing in the tail? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning those metrics, and let's keep building better AI. Catch you next time.